Hi, I'm Julia Strait, and today we're going to be doing a gentle Hatha sequence for opening the heart. So before we get started, I wanted you to notice I have a couple props. If you don't have a bolster, a pillow will work fine. If you don't have blocks, you might grab some books before we start. If you don't have a yoga blanket, a towel will work great. So let's come to seated. Take an easy seat, whatever that means for you. You could have your legs crossed, maybe one shin in front of the other. That's comfortable for me. Sometimes I like to roll up the blanket and put it right underneath my sit bones. And that helps me to elevate a little bit to where we keep that nice curve in the spine, the natural curve. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. Put that under my booty there. And first, let me adjust it. I invite you to just arrive. Check out where your breath is. If you got any tension going on, maybe some thoughts running through your head. And I'd like to invite you, if it feels okay, to put one hand on your heart. We're going to be thinking a lot today about opening the heart, learning the difference between when it feels very open versus when it feels closed. So just take a minute to look in there and see what's going on. Your heart rate might be really fast, really slow. It might be really quiet. Just check in with what the heart is doing. And maybe in line with checking in with the heart, find your breath too. Just take a few breaths here, not trying to change it, just connecting with the heart. That spiritual level, maybe connecting with others you might be practicing right now, connecting with your own feelings, your care for yourself. And take a minute to set an intention for your own practice today. When you're ready, you can open your eyes and stay in your easy seated position. We'll do a few things to warm up. So first, you can keep your blanket beneath your seat. Take your hands. I would suggest palms down for the beginning. We're going to be rolling through our upper body and shoulders for a minute, just loosening some things up. So take a deep breath. Maybe two. Filling all the way up to the heart chakra. And again, just find your sits bones, find your happy place right here in the middle, wherever your legs and your hips and your booty wants to be. We're going to first take our right ear down to the right shoulder for a little tiny stretch of the left side of the neck. Taking a few breaths here in and out. Maybe you stretch a little gentler toward that shoulder. In and out. If you'd like to add a little more sensation, you can take the left hand right behind the left knee and kind of tent your fingertips on the ground. Feel a stretch all the way through the upper neck and the back of the shoulder. In and out on your own breath. Bring your head back to neutral. Maybe the hand comes back to the knee. Let's take another stretch. This time, left ear melts toward the left shoulder. Taking a breath in and a breath out. Just feeling that openness in the upper body as your neck stretches ever so slightly. If you'd like more sensation, you can take your right fingertips and tent them on your mat, finding a line of energy all the way down from the fingertips through the neck bringing your left ear toward the left shoulder. Melting the left ear toward the left shoulder. Whenever it feels right, come back to center with your head. Let's switch the crossing of our legs. So if one is in front, switch it around with the other one just to feel a little balanced. Now let's try to roll our shoulders around a little bit. So I'm gonna take my hands to my knees, palms to my knees, and pull with just a little tiny bit of tension and shrug my shoulders up toward my ears with the inhale. Exhale, send them back down toward the ground. Inhaling up toward the ears. Exhaling back down. Rolling your shoulders a few more times. Again, feeling the chest open, the heart open every time you roll them back. Maybe going the other way for a few minutes, a few breaths. To me, it feels good to inhale on the way up and exhale on the way down. You can play with different patterns of breathing. Okay. All right. Now we're going to roll our whole upper body. If you lean a little bit to one side, find your elbow bending, tick-tock up to the front of the mat, or mine's a little diagonal, so the front of the room. And we're going to slide through in a circle. Pretend you're making a circle on the ceiling with your head. So I'm sliding through the front, opening the chest, slithering on through the back, and crunching in a little bit in the tummy. And then opening up the chest, coming back in, curling in like you're holding a beach ball right between your chin and your pelvis. In and out. Few more times. Getting the top of the body warm. Feeling those shoulders open a little bit more. Okay, let's go the other way. So into the left side, forward. Feeling your knees and your sits bones continuing to go toward the ground. I like to breathe in, going forward, and then exhale on the second half to where I can curl in. Inhale, open up. Exhale, curl back in. Okay. Find your breath. Find your heart. Maybe check in on what's going on in your head. Maybe you've arrived a little bit more. Let the outside world fall away for just a little bit. So again, energetically gripping the fronts of the kneecaps with the palms of the hands, leaving the knees where they are, and energetically pulling, rolling the shoulders back, the same way we just did as we rolled through, but keeping your upper body in the center. So we're just going to do what's called a seated cat-cow. And let me demonstrate this from this side. I'm going to keep my little blanket under my booty. I'm going to switch my legs again just because it feels good. It's up to you. So I have a relatively straight back with a natural curve, getting held up by the towel. I'm going to energetically pull my palms back on my knees and find a little curve in the thoracic spine as I inhale and open the heart. Maybe look up if it feels good without straining the neck. And then curling the tummy in like you're holding that beach ball. Sliding the heart forward and the shoulders back. Maybe the head comes up. Curling back in. And exhale. Inhale, shoulders back. Exhale, heart comes back with the tummy. Like you're making a C. A few more times with your breath. If you find this doesn't feel good on your knees to have them down for so long, it's totally okay to bring them in front of you as well. You can get the same curve in your back and the same opening of the heart, the curve of the back, the opening of the heart. Take a deep breath in. See if there's any more tiny movement you need for your upper body to open up. And we're going to come to a tabletop position. So a tabletop position, we're going to find the four corners of our hands and ground them into the mat. Each hand will be right below my shoulders, like this. And then I'm going to make sort of a right angle with the back and with the legs. And I know my pants are black, so it's hard to see, but I have them, can't see that. I have my tops of my feet down, and I'm going to be pushing my shin all the way up to the top of my foot gently into the mat to maintain this strength and this grounding as we stay in tabletop for a minute. If this hurts your knees, you can take your trusty blanket and either roll it up or fold it and put it right below the knees. So let's stay in tabletop for a minute, find our breath, and just like we did the seated cat-cow, now we're going to do cat-cow from tabletop. So the movement is going to start, let me get my feet down, I'm going to start by curling the tailbone under, and you see how that automatically pushes my spine toward the ceiling. Just like a cat stretching out, I'm making that C with my belly, and I'm stretching like a cat. I like to do that part on the exhale, so let's try again from the beginning. We're down here in this right angle in tabletop, pressing through the hands, pressing through our foundation, tops of the feet, tops of the shins, blanket in the knees if you need it. Pressing, pressing, tipping that pelvic bone or that tailbone down so that your back starts to round like it's holding a beach ball between your legs and your chin. And really stretch up through the arms. Find the heart between the hands. Slide the heart forward. And as you do, tip your tailbone back to the sky. And you want to really be careful that instead of just shoving into the low back like this, like sway back, that you're really allowing the tailbone to guide the movement up, and that the curve just kind of follows up your spine, so that it eventually finds its way to the heart. Just like when we were sitting down and we were doing this and open, this and open. It's the same movement cat-cow. So I'll show you from this angle. Put my knee towel. We're finding our foundation in the hands. That tailbone is going to tip up this time, not shoving into the low back, but curving all through the upper part of the back. Energetically, you might be kind of clawing your hands this way to pull the heart forward. You feel a stretch in the belly, that might be something that happens for you. And so that's what it looks like from the side. Stretching into cow. Slowly back into cat on the exhale. Inhale back into cow. Letting the belly stretch, letting the heart come forward. See if you can find that rhythm like a wave in your spine on your own breath. Great job. All right. Now we're going to come all the way down. So from tabletop, you can get into this a couple different ways. You can just slide your knees back a couple of inches and pointing your elbows toward the back wall, come into chaturanga with the knees down, lowering all the way down. You can also, if you'd like, one option if this is in your practice is to curl the toes under at this point. Send the hips back into down dog, and then come in to plank. On the exhale, lower down, chaturanga, all the way down to the mat. We're going to break it up a little bit instead of flowing all at once. Once you're down on the mat, make sure your hands are right here underneath your shoulders. And instead of pushing up and shoving into cobra, which we're going to do in a minute, think about energetically pulling the hands back like we just did when we were in tabletop, pulling the hands back instead of shoving up. Instead of curling forward, we're going to pull the heart open. So let me show you from this side. We're on the ground. We still have our tops of our feet and our shins and now our upper thighs pressing into the mat. There's still a natural curve of the low back, not a shoving up and not a shoving down, but a natural curve. And we're going to energetically claw our heart forward. You can come down on one cheek and rest. Let's try that again. This time imagine that you're watching a little ant crawl all the way up the ceiling as you bring yourself up. So start on the forehead, energetically clawing back, rooting yourself through your feet and your shins, making sure your tailbone is neutral, dragging the hands energetically back to pull the heart forward, and eyes, nose, chin, and chest release away from the mat. Breathe here. Bring the shoulder blades closer together on the back, acting like you're holding something between the shoulder blades, like a pencil or maybe a pillow. Keeping the elbows pointing back. Let yourself lay down on the other cheek this time. My earring doesn't want to do that. Okay, there you go. And just resting and noticing any change maybe in your heartbeat now that we've started to warm up a little bit. Let's do that one more time. So, making our tailbone neutral, our sacrum is neutral. We're really doing a lot of work in the upper body to curl up, but the lower body keeps us anchored. So clawing the hands energetically, they may not move, but you're almost like you're pulling the mat apart. And you're sliding your heart forward, eyes, nose, chin, chest. Watch that bug crawl up the wall. Maybe you go a little further this time, maybe not. Breathe a couple times here. To make sure that you're not jamming up through the joints. See if you can maybe lift your hands off the mat and keep yourself engaged through your upper and lower back. Through bringing the shoulder blades together and keeping the elbows back. Okay. Rest on your cheek for a little bit. Notice your heartbeat and your breath. Notice your thoughts. What are they doing? To counteract the work that we just did on the lower back, we might want to take crocodile. So this is a restful pose. You can put your feet out, if you can see it, toward the corners of the mat. And lay yourself back down. And we're going to put our arms parallel to the top of the mat. And I'm going to lay my head down. And this is letting my low back rest. You might find the inner lining of your feet coming closer to the mat this way to let your sacrum and your lower back relax for all the work it did just now. Taking a little rest there for a minute. And see if you can find the opening of your heart even in this restful position. Maybe it's melting toward the mat. Take a few breaths on the other cheek. Letting the tension go. Counterbalancing the strong pose we just did with a more restful one. When you're ready, bring your feet back closer to each other. And I'm going to find my hands under my shoulders again. And just real easily press back up into sort of a tabletop where we were before. Widen the knees as much as you need to. We're going to go into a child's pose, kind of a strong child's pose. If you need to, again, put the blanket, or if you want to, if it feels good, sometimes it just feels good, put the blanket under your knees. When we go back, you're going to find tabletop, widen your knees a little bit. My feet are kind of in a triangle. I'm going to send my booty backward toward my heels and really stretch so far that my fingertips might even slide forward. And here I can find my neck relaxed. And although I've got a lot of stretch going on, a lot of strength in the arms, finding my chest melting toward the mat. Again, finding that opening through the chest and through the heart. Melting toward the mat, leaving plenty of space for my belly between my legs to rest. But strengthening the arms, maybe energetically kind of palming the mat. Finding strength in the arms and melting the heart. And breathe here. Inhaling all the way up from the belly into the top of the chest, and then exhaling back. Come back up into tabletop. And this time we are going to curl our toes under. We're going to root our hands 4 corners, and we're going to lift our hips and send them backward toward our heels. You don't have to all the way straighten your legs right away. Come up and find a little curve in your upper back first. You can keep the knees bent if you need to first. So the priority is that your hips are lifting up. And then when you're ready, see if you can let your heels melt toward the ground. You don't have to reach it all the way. You can put a blanket or even a bolster beneath your heels if it feels more grounding to you. So let's try that again. We're in tabletop. We're curling the toes. Send the hips back. I'm going to put my bolster or pillow underneath my heels because it feels good. I'm prioritizing length in the back, and then maybe let my heels melt down. Keeping a little micro bend in my knees because I tend to hyperextend and want to shove out. So I'm going to keep a little micro bend here. Breathing in and out. If you feel yourself sliding, remember to root your hands all 4 corners onto the mat really energetically. Like you're on a surfboard. All right, let me come back over here. So let me show you that again. Tabletop, we come send the hips back, heels on the bolster, on melting toward the ground. And in down dog, I know we've been here for a minute. Again, find a place with your knees and your back where you can let your heart melt forward without sort of shoving into your joints. So keeping your arms strong as we just did in that strong child's pose, but also finding softness as your heart melts down, and softness maybe in the back of the neck. And we can have effort and ease at the same time, just like we just did in child's pose, pushing the arms with strength and letting the heart melt, letting the knees bend as much as they need to, keeping length in the side body on each side. Breathe here. When you're ready, take your right foot up into one-legged dog. Try to keep the toes pointed down. Left foot stays rooted, hand stays rooted. Bring your knee towards your nose in that curling position with the beach ball. It will help get it there if you curl up. Take your your feet between your hands for a low lunge. I'm going to move my bolster / pillow out of the way because it's going to make me trip. So now we're in a low lunge. The front foot has all 4 corners of the foot rooted. We're going to find right here that our knee is directly over the ankle, and we're making sort of a right angle with our knee and our shin. We're really energetically pushing down, and then our counterbalance is coming from that back leg, which is also strong. Maybe even think about like flexing the top of your thigh right there and pushing back through the heel. Really finding strength here. And again, the key is strength in the legs, but we still allow our heart to melt forward. So maybe you can find even a little bit of a tiny upper back bend in this lunge. Kind of, I like to breathe. Inhale, and then come back. Inhale just a tiny bit to bring your heart forward and come back. If you're having trouble reaching the ground, you can get blocks or books. And you can put them on either side. Mine are not completely even, but almost. So if you have 2 blocks, you might try them on the middle height. So we're in our lunge. All 4 corners of the foot are rooted. We got our knee over our ankle. The back leg is strong and engaged. The booty is engaged. And we're putting our hands on blocks to help us get a little extra lift. This can be excellent for clawing forward and opening the heart. So exhale out. Inhale, lift a little bit more through the heart. Trying not to let your knee or ooh, mine just popped. See? Don't do that. So opening the heart. My heartbeat's getting a little fast, I'm noticing. Noticing my thoughts are getting a little anxious as that happens. So just see what's going on for you. Okay. And I'm going to let my back knee come down first. So letting my back knee come down first and rest for a minute in this transition period right here. And then I'm going to put the top of my left foot down and slide back into half split. If it feels good for you, you can put, again, a blanket under the knee and or blocks with the hands. Half Hanumasana. We're stretching the back of the leg as we just strengthened it. This same movement can be found here. So we got strength in the legs, we got strength in the arms. We're going to energetically on our blocks or on the ground pull the heart forward even as we stretch. Keeping length in the back, but letting our heart melt. Kind of sending it forward even as our shoulders come back and our legs are very strong. Inhale, exhale, find a little more space. Maybe a little space in the belly as you lift yourself up. Check if you've collapsed. Pulling the upper toes or the front toes a little back to get some strengthening of that front leg. Keeping your foundation strong, making sure again that you're not wobbling either way. Okay. And from here, you can rock back forward into a low lunge with your knee down. And I'm just going to take a breath here because my heart is really going. I'm going to stay here for a minute. Feels good. All right, I'm going to find tabletop with my knee back on the towel. And we're going to use that move again to push. Find yourself in tabletop. Let me let you see my knees this time. All 4 corners of the hands, strong foundation. Keeping the shins and the front of the foot pressing into the mat. If it feels good, you can kind of rock back and forth. Or even rock a little bit in circles, if that feels good on your wrists and knees. Kind of working the tension out. So let's do the other side. Curl the toes under. You may need to move your hands a little bit forward for down dog. You can kind of measure it for yourself. The key is that whenever you're in plank, if you push your hips back from plank, that's about the length you should be for downward dog. So let's try that again. I'm in tabletop with my hands a little forward. For me, that's what works. I rock my wrists a little bit forward. I'm going to curl my toes and lift the knees, maybe one at a time, into plank. And then send the hips back into down dog, bending the knees if you need to, melting the heels down. You can put your blanket back under there if you need to. Let's flow through that one more time. So shift forward back into tabletop with the knees down. Let's get really strong in the hands and in the arms. Curl the toes, maybe one leg at a time, into plank. Keeping length in the back, not like curling in, not sticking out. Trying to get straight. flexing the tummy, pushing straight into the mat. Little plank. See if even here can you find space in the heart. You may not be able to bring it forward all the way without hunching or without dumping into the low back, but maybe you can find some space with the strength in the hands, some space with the chest. Breathing in, breathing out. And then send the hips back into down dog. Finally, she said. Melt the heels down. Breathe here. Check in on that heartbeat, man. I know we're holding stuff for a while today. We're just looking at the heart, trying to see if we can open it up a little bit. All right, check your hands. Check your foundation, and when you're ready, bring the left leg, the left heel toward the ceiling. Find a line of energy from all the way from this hand into the foot. So I'm pressing, finding my energy all the way up. Then do that same curling cat motion, bringing the knee to the nose, and then sliding that foot up there. If you can't get it, it's okay, just help it out a little bit. Again, you might need some blocks or books next to you. All right, and we're going to find a low lunge on this side. So my foot, my toe, my big toe is pointing toward the short side of my mat or the front of the room. Well, that's the front, yes. Short side of the mat. The label on your mat, probably. My heel is pointing toward the back. I've got these right angles here, keeping my knee safe and behind the ankle, not dumping forward, not do, just keeping strong right here, and not losing sight of that back leg, right? So again, like kind of flexing that back leg. If this is too much, or if you're just not feeling that today, you want less sensation, you can bring that knee down. It's okay. I like to do that sometimes. It feels good. Okay, so we're in the low lunge. I'll go back to that one. I'm going to stay there. And breathe. Again, let's see if we can find an open heart here. So I've got my blocks or my mat. Kind of heart lifting as much forward as I can. It might just be completely unnoticeable to you, but to me I can feel kind of get a little open, and I energetically grip, and I strengthen my arms, and I strengthen my back leg, and I see if I can find space in the chest. And I'm breathing, man. Exhale. Inhale. Like we did on the other side, you can kind of shift forward and back if that feels good. Kind of, curve in, and then cow. Little micro cat, little micro cow. And if you can't see, my leg and my shoulder, like where are they in relation to each other? My knee is kind of tucked right into that armpit. So when I'm getting my blocks, blocks work better than books, but hey, we'll do what we can. So we might energetically pull, keeping that back leg strong. See, it's just a little micro cat-cow. Okay. Go back over here. All right, when you're ready, if you need or if you want, a little towel bolster under your knee will work fine. We're going to let that knee down. Stay here for just a second. We're going to put our top of our foot on the mat. Whew. I think my heater just came on. Perfect. And we're going to shift back into half Hanumasana. I'm going to have to drag my blocks with me. You may have to drag your blocks back, or take your foot a little forward. That's okay too. Whatever gets you the most space right here. That's the priority today. Space in the chest. We're opening the heart. If you need to come up on your tippy toes on your tippy fingers for just a second to feel what that feels like, maybe like let it, okay, this is what it's going to feel like. It may not look like that, but that's what I want it to feel like. I'm pulling the toes back toward my face, keeping the back leg strong, pushing into the mat with my shin and my upper foot, trying to stay balanced. countering that pulling back with a pulling forward of the arms, almost like you're pulling yourself out of a pool. Breathing in and out. Complementing the strengthening we just did with some stretch of that front leg. All right, bringing your foot back to the mat. Ooh. I'm going to bring my knee down here, back into a tabletop position. This time, go ahead and keep your blocks. Put them forward toward the top of your mat. And let's use this opportunity, since we have the blocks, to come from tabletop. You might want to widen your knees a little bit and find the neutral curve in your lower spine. And send that booty back to the heels, leaving space for the belly. Keep your hands on blocks. Maybe this helps you find a little space with the heart. It also helps if your neck gets jammed up when we're on the mat in child's pose. This is really nice to give space between the arms. Inhaling and exhaling here. If this is too much sensation, of course you can do it without the blocks and just do a regular child's pose. But for this practice today, since we're heart opening, it is kind of nice to find a place where you can get some stretch in the arms and not let them go completely. They're not really resting. Where the whole idea is that we're strengthening the legs and arms in order to get space in the rest of the body, including chest specifically. So you can find it here. Some of you are really, really hyper flexible, and you might, be tempted to go woo, like all the way down with your shoulders up here. And if you do that, just make sure that you keep some strength and your muscles activated so that you're not just jamming into your joints. So keeping that activation, continually telling my tailbone to melt down toward my heels here. In and out. And now you can move your blocks away. And if you'd like, take a little more restful version of child's pose. You might need to narrow your knees a little bit. And we're going to put our arms right to the side, more of like a fallen leaf, to really rest the arms that we just worked so hard. Finding the heartbeat. Maybe that chest feels a little more open now. And we'll rest on the other side to even it out. So your butt might be moving towards your heels. It doesn't have to touch them. Making room for your belly, room for your neck. And in this one, you can just rest and find your heartbeat, find your breath. Find your thoughts. Where's your brain? Okay. All right, now we're going to move into camel. So we're going to be on our knees. So if you have your towel rolled up, you can keep it right under those knees. And what we're going to do is, hero pose to start, which is just my knees in line with my hips in line with my shoulders. I'm just going to sit right back on my heels. If this is too much, you can put either a blanket or a bolster between. Kind of sit there. That's okay. And what we're going to do is come to a kneeling position, like standing kneeling, I guess, to where there's a right angle now at the back of my knee, right here. And I'm not going to thrust my pelvis forward, and I'm not going to curl it back, but I'm going to find that same neutral spine we've been finding all day long. Little tiny flex of the belly maybe to hold you up, but not a ton. And just keeping that space in the back, in the low back especially. Letting the glutes be supportive but not tight. You don't want to clench up your booty. So find this position. And just for a minute before we start, let's do a couple breaths. So taking the fingertips toward the sky, inhale. And bring the hands back through heart center. Again, inhale. Exhaling through heart center. Let's do that one more time. Felt good. Inhaling up. And hands through heart center. Keep them here this time. Fingertips to sky. Again, keeping that straight. Back with the curve in the bottom, not completely shoved. But reaching your fingertips to the sky on the inhale. And this time as you come, your arms come down with your shins still grounding into the ground. cactus the arms to the side and find a nice opening of the chest, nice broad chest. Maybe inhale again, cactusing the arms. I'll show you from here. Inhale again, cactusing the arms on the exhale. Be real careful as you come down. Sometimes that miniature curve in the upper back makes you want to curve the low back and fall into it, but try to keep this sturdy. Inhaling fingertips to sky, cactusing the arms, but keep it sturdy. One more time, that feels good. Inhale in, exhale the elbows toward the hips. All right, inhale the fingertips to sky, hands through the heart center one more time. All right, so here's for camel. We want to make sure our foundation is good. Keep those shins and tops of the feet pressing to the mat. Another option, if you would like, is to curl your toes under almost as if you're going into down dog. Just make sure you stay balanced with the weight here, that you're not pushing forward or back. We're going to keep our knees parallel to the wall. Make fists with your hands. And what we're going to do, first, externally rotate the shoulders and just see how that feels. Just now we did the cactus. See how that feels? Okay, so I'm going to do that. And I'm going to kind of like keep my shoulder rotated out, but twist the little arm, the fist back in, making the fist behind me so that my shoulder still feels like it's pulled back. And see what I already did is like, I'm keeping it bound up there. External rotation at the top of the shoulders, internal rotation of the forearm to get my fist right on my sacrum, on the small of my back. It's like maybe where your pants might meet, right there. I'm going to do the same thing with the other one. So if you watch from the back, it's like this. Open your palms to the far wall, if that helps, to externally rotate the shoulders. And then take the tops of the hands, keeping this rotation, and push them back in. Make a fist. And plant them right there on the small of your back, the sacrum. So here we are. Rolling the shoulders back, finding the open chest without... We're going to grow really tall. So I'm going to inhale and really tall with the upper body, opening the chest. And on the exhale, I might just tilt ever so slightly back. I don't have to fully just like flop back into camel right now. I'm going to do that again. So fists on the sacrum, external rotation of the shoulders. Inhale my top of my head toward the ceiling. And just the slightest upper back bend there. Inhaling and exhaling. If you're ready, you can bend a little farther. Keeping the main curve in the upper part of the back, not shoving forward. So your hips may move forward a little bit, but it's only because the top of the back is curving so far. Okay? An alternative to this, if you don't feel safe or if you have low back issues, of course, would be to come to bridge. So let me demonstrate that. And those of you that are in camel, you can stay breathing here. If you need a rest, you can come down to fallen leaf. But an alternative to camel is always bridge. So lying supine on the ground with your feet. Let me show you my knee there. My feet, my heels are in line with my sit bones. They're about a forearm's length away from my booty to my heel. I'm going to keep the natural curve in my back, press my triceps into the mat, and slowly, just like in cat, where we tipped our pelvis bone, or our tailbone forward, same movement. I'm going to peel that off of the mat slowly. So I tilt the tailbone, peel it off of the mat slowly, roll up, pressing the forearms down, and I stay in bridge. So really pressing through the feet, tucking the chin to protect the neck, pressing through the triceps. And if you want even less sensation, you just want to kind of take it easy today, put a block or your books for supported bridge. And that's just fine too. All of these will have the same effect of a slight opening of the upper back, and that's what we're looking for today. Because if you open your upper, or if you are able to find curve in the upper back, you can find opening of the chest. So again, this is an option. Supported bridge is an option with a block or even a bolster here, or a pillow, blanket, or bridge with the triceps pushing down, straight line like this. Let's straight line of energy. Finding most of the curve in the upper back, not shoving into the pelvis. It's the same move. Just imagine that there's a mat right here, just like this. So it's the same move. Triceps and all. All right. So if you've been in camel, come take a rest. Let's rest for a second in hero pose for a minute, which is just booty to heels. So from the back, for me that looks like this. Your feet may be a little wider, a little more narrow, depending on your body. Let's just rest in hero for a minute, hands on the knees, straight torso. Ooh, finding that breath. We're going to come into that pose one more time. So whatever your variation was, you can keep it the same, or you might want to try something else. So again, it's either we're rising up, rotating the arms out into fists, sacrum, growing tall into camel. Just a little mini camel here. I like to tuck my neck because I have thoracic issues and cervical issues in my neck. So you'll sometimes see people shove their neck back. Hey, if you want to, that's cool. I like to tuck my neck when I'm doing these types of back bends to keep it safe. I'm going to breathe there. And remember that another option right now is either supported bridge or bridge on your back. Of course, you can come into child's pose or fallen leaf anytime you want as well. So I've got my shins pressing into the mat. Tummy is a little engaged to keep me straight. Natural curve in the back. Fist to sacrum. Breathing again in camel. Some of you will want even more sensation, and to do that, you can of course bring one hand at a time down to either your heels, or you can curl your toes under and do the same thing one at a time. Keeping most of the curve in that upper back and opening the heart. Breathe here if you'd like to. Certainly not required. If you are in either form of camel, please do bring your fist back to your sacrum before coming all the way up to keep your back safe. All right, so let's get back into hero. Take one more little rest. And we're going to get ready to get on the ground. Check your heartbeat. Mine's a little faster than it was. Might be the heater though. All right. So in any way that feels comfortable to you, I'm going to bring my feet forward, but find an easy seat again. And we're just going to kind of move through that. I like to rest in each transition pose just for a minute to check how my body's feeling. And then when you're ready, you're going to come all the way down to your back. So I like to roll down onto my back. You can get there however you would like. To counteract some of the back stuff we just did, we're going to find windshield wipers with our feet. So place your feet on the mat, hips distance apart, knees pointing toward the ceiling. It's time to cool down. So, okay. I'm going to let my upper body rest. Maybe find my shoulder blades tucked slightly behind my back so that my shoulders will open a bit. To help that, I can put my palms toward the sky. I'm going to rest here for a second. And then, like I said, let's windshield wiper the knees. So bringing both knees over to the right. The left booty may come off the ground. That's okay. Try to keep the left shoulder on the ground, though. And then back up. Inhale. Exhale, knees to the side, left side. Inhale. And on your own breath a few times. I'll show you what that looks like from here. So, I guess I gotta do that again. So, windshield wipering the feet. And inhaling up and exhaling down. Inhale, exhale. Bring your feet back to the floor for a second. Take one of your legs up toward the sky, heel toward the sky, and you can lay the other leg out flat on your mat. And just a little stretch here of the back of the leg. kind of take your fingers and you can wrap them around your thigh or your calf, whatever feels good. Some people even might take their toe and stretch this way. That's totally fine. I'm going to keep it right here. And I like to do little micro moves, so I inhale and then I exhale and bring it a little closer. Inhale, exhale a little closer. I'm just being careful too that when I do this, my whole butt doesn't come off the ground. Like my sacrum is really flat on the mat. This part, keeping the hips aligned with each other horizontally. I'm stretching that knee, pressing this leg into the mat for support. Heel toward the sky. Just, it might be down here, and that's okay too. All right, now bend this knee and hug it in. Oh yeah, hug it in. Inhale and exhale that workout. Take your left hand to the outside of your right knee and gently guide it around into a spinal twist. So I'm keeping my right shoulder on the ground, maybe having my palm face the sky to keep that heart open. You may need, before you do it, to shift your hips to the right. That'll give you a little more space. Put my leg down, leg up, leg bent. Sorry, that was a mistake. And I'm guiding my knee over here. So if I'm lying down, in case you can't see, this would look like this. Hugging the knee in, guiding it there. All right. Let's try it again. Hugging the knee in, guiding it. And just rest there for a little bit. Again, finding that like really open space in the chest, keeping the shoulders open, shoulder blades touching the ground. Feeling your heart rate slow down a little bit. Maybe feeling a stretch in the right side body and the right thigh, or the right outer hip. All right, I'm going to inhale that leg back in. Exhale, take a little hug. And lay that foot back down. Let's take the left leg. Okay, we're going to send the left heel toward the ceiling. Again, it could be here, it could be here, it could be here. If you want a strap or a belt, or even maybe your blanket could work to help you, you could wrap it around that foot as well. And we're just stretching the back of the leg, keeping our shoulders on the ground, keeping that chest open. I'm going to go back to this variation because I like it. So that micro movement of maybe inhale it away and exhale it closer to you. Inhale away. Your hands could be here or here. Probably not here. They could even be here. As long as your shoulder stays on the mat. I actually can't really, the way my body is built doesn't let me do that too easily, so I like to keep it here. Breathe. When you're ready, hug that knee in. Ooh, exhale. Take the right hand outside of the left knee and hang on, sorry. Let's shift our hips over a little bit to the left, maybe an inch or two, just like a finger width. Okay, now let's try that again. Right hand to left outer knee with the hips shifted. Guide the knee toward the opposite side. Now you get to see it from this side. My palm is going to stay up and my shoulder tries to melt toward the floor. I'm not going to move my knee any farther to where it's pulling my shoulder up. I'll leave my shoulder down. Every now and then this might not feel good if your knee can't get toward the floor, so I kept my blocks here actually. Well, my makeshift blocks. You can put it under your knee. That looks like this. Letting your knee kind of rest on the block so you can stay laying down, but I'm going to show you if you were from the top. I would be guiding my knee over and resting them on the block. Okay. So we're in a spinal twist. Whoops. Now hug that knee, bring it back over into the chest. Exhale. Ooh, let that knee go. Do anything else your body needs before we settle down into Shavasana or corpse pose. So maybe you might want to hug both knees in. Circle the knees. Maybe you want to grab the outside of each foot and do a little happy baby action before we settle down. Rock back and forth. And when you're ready, you're going to lay your legs out long on the mat. Let your feet flop out if they need to. And you're going to tuck your shoulder blades in and let your palms stay up for the sake of heart opening this time. If you have low back issues, you can take either a bolster, pillow, blanket, and put it under your knees. That might help. And if you'd like, you can put something under your head if that doesn't feel good on your skull. Got hard ground like me. So I'm going to let my knees splay open. My hands face the ceiling. I feel that nice heart opening. So you stay here. I'm going to sit up and guide you through a little relaxation. So feeling the backs of your hands on the ground. They're anchored there. They're heavy. My kids are trying to get in here. The backs of your hands on the ground, they're anchored. They're heavy. Your chest is open. The edges of your shoulder blades are against the ground. And your chest is feeling light, open. The back of your head is feeling grounded and anchored. Your eyes are soft. Your jaw is soft. Your neck is relaxed. The back of your head, the back of your shoulders, and the tops of your hands are melting into the ground as your heart stays open and lifted. Hearing any outside noises and just letting them be. Finding your breath, and this time, not trying to change it, just watching it. How does your heart rate and your breath, how do they find each other? You're at the end. And watching the baby come into the room and relax. And when you're ready,
Focus on your breath. Focus on your breath.
And just taking life as it comes. Sometimes during Shavasana, your family walks in, and that's okay. Noticing your breath.
I gotta go. Bye.
If you can stay calm during these moments, you can stay calm during anything.
It's okay,
Keeping
buddy.
your hands open.
Oh, I know. I know.
Maybe that you got your heart going a little faster. Just noticing, again, everything anchored on the ground. Let's go back to that. The back of the head, the backs of the hands, the heels, calves, the buttocks, all melting into the mat. Your heart feeling open and wide. And when you're ready, start to wiggle your toes and your fingers. Wiggle, wiggle. You can start to let your eyes drift open. You might want to roll to one side to rest before you come all the way up. Take a breath here. Maybe push into a seated position when you're ready. And look at the crossing of your legs, maybe put one leg in front that wasn't in front the last time. from my heart to your heart. Thank you for practicing with me today. I hope that you were able to find some connection with yourself, with your heart, with your breath, and with all the waves of life. Namaste.